Hello, my name is Rachel Filson from Seoul Foreign High School. The poem I will be discussing is War Photographer by Carol Ann Duffy. Duffy wrote this poem because of the inspiration of her friendship with the war photographer. Duffy was interested by how challenging and horrific of a job it was for someone with a specific occupation. The basic idea of these jobs is to deliver the truths about the life at war and the living conditions of these people. The poem conveys the tragedy of the war, but also the difficulty of having this career. War Photographer is about being in a war zone and a war photographer being at work documenting these disastrous and catastrophic events. The central meaning Duffy is trying to communicate with her audience is what effects war has on her victims. Additionally, Duffy is also trying to suggest that nobody really cares about what is happening at war. People of the public are unaware and simply just glance at the news temporarily. They are not truly concerned. Duffy tries to explain how there are real people who are involved and impacted by these events, and how it is life-threatening and repulsive to live in other places around the world with these conditions. The poem is written in 4 6-line stanzas. How Duffy organized the stanzas mimics the actions of the photographer and their process of developing their photographs. Each stanza ends with a rhyming couplet. As the poem goes on, the photographer reflects about the process and is having flashbacks. Darkness is also a symbol of negative emotions and how dark the world is. The poem is written in a iambic pentameter. In the first stanza, the lines go A, B, B, C, D, D. The second stanza is E, F, F, G, H, H. In the third stanza, the lines are I, J, J, K, L, L. Lastly, in the fourth stanza, the lines are M, N, N, O, P, P. An important element to consider while reading the poem is the words associated with photography, such as dark room, spools, only sight is red, solutions slot in trays, half-formed, and black and white. Another element mentioned in use of locations include places such as Belfast and rural England. I will begin with analyzing the first stanza, and then I will continue on through until I get to the fourth stanza. In the first stanza, the poem is set in the photographer's dark room as he's developing his photos. In the second line, Duffy's choice of diction of set on in ordered rows indicates a sense of suffering and possibly graves laid out for the victims. Also with this line, the photographer is being compared to a priest. This religious imagery is similar because, like a priest, a war photographer is often exposed to suffering and even death. In the third line, the red light is a symbol of blood and the presence of Christ. There is an idea that the dark room is a place where the photographer feels a sense of relief, and this is his escape from the war. Also, the red light is an altar of red candles honoring the dead. The photographer is shaking and trembling as he is emotionally unstable and is traumatized by this experience. At the ends of lines 5 and 6, the use of mass and grass is a half rhyme. In line 6, the stanza ends with some of the places that the photographer has documented. In line 6, the stanza ends with the places that the photographer has documented images of events of tragedy. Lastly, all flesh and grass is stating that everyone eventually dies at some point, and that's one of the realities that come with life. The main idea of the second stanza is to represent how during the photographer's time taking photos, he must stay composed, but as in the privacy of his dark room, he has time to react and reflect on the deathly sights that he has to see during his time of taking photos during the war. While taking photos, he is unable to tremble, but later he is able to release this composure he has to have. In the 9th line, the photographer is explaining how in England, the children are able to play peacefully and are not concerned about how they might be bombarded or live in fear. They're not concerned with the war in their daily lives, unlike the children he has to take photos of. By stating in the third stanza, the 13th line, something is happening, this indicates that something suspenseful is going on, and that the photo is beginning to develop, and Duffy is allowing her audience to perceive the photograph. The photograph is of a man that is dying, and Duffy describes him as a half-formed ghost in line 15. By the picture developing, the memories are coming to life and is showing how it impacted the photographer. This was given a double meaning. In line 16 and 17, how he sought approval without words to do what someone must, is saying that someone has to take the photos, someone has to show the world what's going on in the war, because people aren't realizing that there's more to it than what they can assume or what they perceive. And he feels as if it's his responsibility to portray and relay the truth to the public. In the last stanza, Duffy seems to criticize or make a simple comment about how these photographs will be perceived in the news by the readers and also by the editor. Out of all of the photos that the war photographer has to take, only a few of these are being featured or shown in the newspapers, and meaning only a few of these photos are being shown to the world, and it's not completely giving a sense of what war is like, which is the main point of his job, is to tell people what's going on, to report and document the events, and by only featuring a few of these photos, it's not completely being, it doesn't completely give it justice. By the editor only choosing such a limited amount of photos, it's being misinterpreted, and it's a lack of the representation being delivered. In lines 20 and 21, six and prick is a half rhyme, and the use of prick in the 21st line insists that the pain is only temporary and the people only care about these issues for a certain amount of time, and it's typically not a very long time unless it directly affects them, such as having a family member in the war. As the poem ends, the photographer is moving on to his next placement, and nobody seems to care. And the last stanza is overall about the final product of the photograph and what the end result is, while being a critique of the media. In all of the stanzas, each one is progressively talking about how the photograph is being developed, and then lastly, it's being developed, or it has been developed and it has the product.